Mumia, Obsidian, Ali, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
Um, I'm doing all right. How did I do with the pronunciation of your name?
Did just fine, man. No problems at all. Most people kind of stumble and bumble through it, but you did just fine.
All right, all right. So I want to give a little, sort of history as far as what led me to, the red pill and the manosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching YouTube and probably watching like Jordan Peterson or something. And, the algorithm started to suggest different things. I had watched the movie called The Red Pill, which is not exactly what is meant by red pill, by the way, but it was really a chronicle. You know what the movie I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Really a chronicle talking about MRAs. And
what did you think of it?
I thought it was interesting in that it brought up some good points. Let's see, Paul Elam, who actually, I started to follow him after I watched that movie.
Yes, I know him very well.
Oh yeah, and Janice Fiamingo.
Yes.
I started checking her Fiamingo files, which I think it's an interesting. It's an interesting angle. It's hard to defeat the argument coming from a woman. It's hard for people to detract. So she does a good job with that, and she has that sort of roundtable discussion with Paul Elam, and
right.
I don't remember the other guy. I can't remember the other guy, but anyhow, it's a good broadcast, and I know she's on Studio Brûlée or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So but checking that stuff out, it sort of started steering me different directions, and then I started hearing or being suggested Solomon Jones, Solo TV 84 videos, and he was kind of all over the place, sometimes talking about anime, the simp tales, and
Solo's a bit he's a bit animated like that.
Yeah, and at first I didn't know how to take it, but then I was like, man, it's like, are people allowed to say are they allowed to say this kind of stuff, and you kind of, from having funky experiences with women, you have enough of them, and then you start wondering if there's something wrong with you. And so just kind of seeing that
there is something wrong with you. You like women.
Right.
Yeah, there is something wrong with you.
Yeah. Right. In particular, I like black women.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, one thing led to the next. I wound up watching The Seven with Donovan Sharp, and I started following Kevin Samuels. And then the algorithm started to suggest you and O'Shea. So I started checking you guys out. And so I'm not exactly sure as to the order, but yeah. So, the kinds of things that you discuss, that many in the Black Manosphere discuss, they're topics that, that prior to spending this time in the space, they're not things that I heard people be willing to say out loud. They're things that I always knew were true, but there weren't things that I heard a lot of folks say, and so that was intriguing, and so.
Well, give me an example.
No. Well, even let's start right from the beginning. This say no to single mothers. I've dated some single mothers,
right?
And and the sort of kind of common issues that people have in that scenario, that you don't necessarily think that would be the issue, but it's like every time it's the same issues. But I mean, and to myself, I could say, hey, that's probably not the greatest idea. You probably have better options than that.
Right.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that out loud.
Okay.
So it's just, it's just,
I mean, you're expressing your opinion.
yeah. I mean, I am not, I'm not opposed to expressing my opinion. You know, I'm in academia.
Okay.
And there are a host of topics that I don't discuss. Because, you know, honestly, I mean, I have tenure now. I've had tenure since about, what, 2009 or 2010.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Thank you. But there's certain things that sort of stick with you. The sort of, you know, you kind of learn what not to say and who not to say it to. Mm-hmm. And I'm more or less to myself. I'm an introvert. And so I don't have a whole lot of reasons to express certain kinds of opinions, you know, in public forums.
Right.
But I find myself being put in these situations more and more now. But I'll tell you, the one of the reasons that I'm really interested in the Black Manosphere is because I have a 7-year-old, a 7-year-old son.
All right.
And, you know, I'm married. My older, what am I saying? My dad and my mom, they've been married for 51 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And, you know, he was 19, she was 18 when they got married.
Wow.
So, and they're the only ones that they ever been with. And so as far as dealing with the dating market, there's not, you know, there's not a lot that, you know, he's going to know, or he would have known when I came of age. You know, he have the, you know, the common knowledge that everybody would have, but you know, the whole social media thing.
He doesn't understand things like the BJC. He doesn't understand things like that.
Right.
He wouldn't know exactly anything about things like what would it be? You know, things like this. He wouldn't know anything about that. I don't want to say the name because I want to get you in trouble on the air.
So,
that might be a little bit before your dad's time. But you and I know about it.
Yeah, you know, I want to be in a position where I can, you know, my son asked me some questions
about the 1,000 eggplant stare.
Right. Where I can have those
night of 1,000 eggplants.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not against women, in this case, black, you know, having a healthy libido or whatever. I mean, they do what they do. But yeah, if you want to try to get a wife, or failing that, a significant other, you want to have a, you know, relationship with for some duration. Yeah, one too many. How do I put it? I want to get you in trouble. One too many. That can be a problem.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about your sort of initiation into the red pill? Maybe you can, you know, talk. You can talk a little bit about, you know, the origins of the Black Manosphere, the beginnings of that, and then maybe talk about what led you to even want to have, you know, be part of the Black Manosphere, or, you know. Thank you so much for watching my video so far.
If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
If you can give a little history.
Yeah. I had worked for a very long time as a blue-collar skilled tradesman, trade unionist. And in early 2009, February 9th, so it'll be 11 years, I guess. Wow, it's been a long time. 12 years, right? Yeah. I took a bad step right after my morning shift started. I worked 2 shifts for like 22 years. And I took a bad step and had a grievous back injury that ended my career. And while I was going through all of that and the grueling, therapy to get me back on, functional again, and dealing with the legal stuff to get my compensation and all the rest of it, I was laying in bed one day, pretty much immobile and in a lot of pain. I had my laptop on my chest, and I was tooling around on web, and I ran across Paul Elam, right? Mm-hmm. And he was writing for an outfit called I can't remember the name of the website now, but he was right. But it wasn't A Voice for Men. A Voice for Men hadn't been around yet, so I got turned on to that, and that kind of led me down a kind of rabbit hole. That led me to a guy by the name of Rorsey in DC, and he went on to become Chateau Hartis. And another guy named Rouge V. That led me to Rollo Tomasi. So, I kind of read all these guys, and I got a wild idea in my head was that, you know what, I'm going to become a writer, even though I never did it before. And because I figured to myself, I got nothing but time now. That work is over, at least my job, and I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do with myself. And I said, well, I'll give this a shot because I got nothing else to lose now. So that's what I did. I started out later that year. I started a little blog, and almost right out the gate, I ran into some controversy with this lady named Benny Vieira. Bene Vieira. Right out the gate, I ran into some controversy with her because of my controversial opinions regarding Black women. And she got my first website shut down. But what I did is I just kept right on getting up. I didn't skip a beat. And I ended up getting featured eventually in A Voice for Men. I got featured in Rouge V's website, Return of Kings, featured in a couple. I even got featured in the Good Men Project, the Spearhead, a couple other places, pretty much everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. Nowadays, I write over at the Negro Manosphere, O'Shea's website. Excuse me, but I pretty much got featured just about anywhere and everywhere that was a major Manosphere literary property, and I wound up co-founding and being the de facto editor-in-chief of another web-based magazine called Just for Guys, a website, Just for Guys. I, interviewed a number of people, among them Miss Dr. Helen Smith, and she wrote a really good book called Men on Strike. And so, I did that. So it was a very interesting whole thing. My relationship with the red pill, see, I never had a problem because there's a lot of guys, and this has always been intriguing to me. There are a lot of guys that have, I guess, a fairy tale view of life, and the red pill kind of roused them out of that. See, I never had a fairy tale view of life. I always understood what's known as, I got to say what the echo box is so dramatic, female nature. I always had a, understanding of that. I always saw that. So that was never a big deal to me. The thing for me was my side of the story not being told. I had seen Black women pretty much have the run of the public square for decades, going all the way back to The Color Purple with Alice Walker and eventually, you know, Oprah Winfrey and so forth. And black women had always had the public square, you know, before, you know, the rise of the internet. They had the networks. They had both the small and the big screen. They had academia. Yeah. And then with the rise of social media, they had that. And I was tired of my side of the story never being told. And I decided to do something about it. So in the summer of 2015, I put together my own podcast. It was just like a 15-minute podcast. And I did it in a tight little bathroom because I needed, like, you know, good sound acoustics, and that was the best thing I could get, was just a little tiny little bathroom. So I did that with a laptop. And then I built it out from there. You know, I went from there to, you know, my own little studio in my apartment. And then I went and got a much bigger place. And that's where I am now, in a much bigger place. Got the entire floor of my building. And I have an entire room built out, you know, specifically made for this. So that's how I got started. And but the red pill piece was never an issue for me. Never was.
You know, the red pill thing, I think I knew something wasn't right, and I knew things should be a certain way, and I knew that maybe I was simping, but there wasn't there wasn't like a model. There wasn't, this is the actual way you should do it, you know. And you know, I interviewed Dr. T. Hassan Johnson.
Yeah, good man.
And yeah, definitely. And he was talking about, because him and I are the same age. We're both 46.
Right.
And he was talking about how, you know, when we were growing up, there was no real language on what it is that we talk about in the red pill, in the Black Manosphere space. There wasn't anything like that. And so you could kind of have a sense that something wasn't right, but it was isolated. It was only you having those thoughts, because, you know, if you said those ideas out loud, even though there would be probably a lot of guys that would agree, they probably wouldn't agree in public.
Yeah.
And
yeah, a lot of guys are really afraid, man, because you know, we live in you know, the overall culture is such that it's, you know, we're basically going toward a yes man culture, but Black American culture in particular, because again, you know, Black women have always had the public square, and Black masculinity is seen as, you know, unbothered and cool pose and Quincy Troop and Miles Davis and, you know, stoic and silent and all that. Man, bunk that. I'm much different than that. I'm irascible and outspoken and loud, and but at the same time very articulate and brilliant, and that's very off-putting for a lot of women. Well, a lot of Black women, that's very off-putting, because they're so used to guys being kind of stoic and silent. And I'm very proud of the fact that I just shut a lot of Black women down. You know?
Speaking of Miles Davis, you know the Miles Ahead movie?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Don Cheadle. It was his movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, recent movie. What was it? 2018 or something?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in that movie.
Wow, really?
I'm Cannonball in that movie. Cannonball Adderley.
Yeah.
And last night I interviewed Ron Carter, who was
great bassist.
That's right. That's
actually, Tribe Called Quest resurrected his career.
there he is right there on the screen behind me. So since we're talking about interviews, back here on the screen behind me, that's the interview I did with Jessica X.
Oh, okay.
And that was just last week. And, speaking of, articulate women that are sort of carrying the message and sort of shutting up all the naysayers.
Yeah.
She does a powerful job of that.
Oh, absolutely. She's the they call her Weapon X, and the reason why is because there are sisters in on social media. They will say this. They will, because a lot of black women for so long has had the public square, has had the mic, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So what they consider themselves being able to do is they want being in the public square by definition is masculine. Being in the public square, publicly addressing people, I understand that you're a Christian of a certain stripe. You'll understand the Pauline epistle about the 2 Timothy, where he talks about church operations, the idea of a man being in the pulpit. See, these are masculine things. And a lot of black women want that masculine ability to address whatever topics of the day they want, and particularly to address black men. But when black men go to respond, what they'll say is, that's not masculine. A real man doesn't go and argue with women. You need to be dealing with the men. So what we did was that, okay, so we bring out Weapon. Let me get my echo box. Bring out Weapon X. Yeah. And they just can't handle that. So essentially, Jessica X is doing what we're doing, just in a female form. And, they don't want to deal with Jessica X. The real deal is they don't want to debate at all. They're using these disingenuous, intellectually dishonest tactics to keep from having to deal with the argument. So what we do is we just sick them on her. Sick her on them, rather. And you see the result.
Attorney Dennis Sperling.
I know him well. Good man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be interviewing him in March. And
very good.
He is. It must have been yesterday that I saw the first episode of this, but he's having this 2 sort of episode series where he's going down these arguments. I don't know if you've seen this. These arguments, basically, what it is it's basically what you say when a woman uses a particular kind of argument, the argument that they use all the time, arguments that are common. And so he's going through the first 10, and he's going to have another stream where he goes through the next the next 10. Apparently, it's on his Facebook. He has the images of the the actual printout of it is on his website.
Yeah.
Not on his website, on his Facebook.
Right.
But it's hard to believe that Jessica is 25.
Yeah, she's kind of wise beyond her years.
Oh, yeah. She is. She's articulate. She's clear. She's not emotional. Yeah.
And the other thing too, because a lot of people say, "Well, Obsidian's too emotional." Well, see, that's the other problem. See, we expect black men to be kind of like, all of us to be Barack Obama, kind of wooden, And my thing is, I'm a very passionate man, but I can also be a very erudite man at the same time. It's very jarring and off-putting for a lot of women to have to deal with that because they're not used to that. A lot of black women want basically a fine-looking Negro that they can boss around. So that's their dream guy. A fine-looking Negro, kind of bars Cujo, you can just kind of boss him around. Do this, do that, And that's not me. You can't boss me around like that.
To their defense, this thing has been set up in a certain way, and for the most part, black women are just sort of doing their sort of survival mode, doing what they felt that they need to do. But the problem with that is it seems that they have a really, really hard time turning that off. When they don't need to have that on, it's not a switch that you can just turn on and off.
Not only that, but let's be honest. I mean, they make it out like everybody's like, oh, Lord, they're picking that cotton. Stop it. Everybody wasn't doing that. And there's a lot of black women that are just A-type personality people. You know, they're irascible. They're loud. I mean, that's just how they are, and that's okay. See, I think the problem that a lot of women in general and black women in particular have is that this has never been a better time to be who you want to be. If you're a black woman and you don't conform to a traditionalist mindset, look, bearing, way of being of a black woman, that's fine. You can go and do your thing. But shout out to Thomas Sowell, there are no solutions, there are trade-offs. The very things that make it possible for you to be a killer in the boardroom or in the courtroom, you know, and so on, etc., they're horrible for a relationship. Unless you want to get a pushover man, a panty waist of a man, a yes man. And some black women like that, at least for a time anyway. Like I said, a lot of black women want to find, you know, Boris Cujo type Negro to just, you know, boss around. See, that's pretty cool for a while, but after a while it gets tired. And so for a lot of these sisters, they need somebody to blame for why they are where they are. They got to blame slavery, even though they ain't never seen no slaves. They got to blame everything and anything except for just their own temperament and personality, and just saying, hey, look, this is the kind of person that I am. And, you know, it comes with its upsides and downsides. See, men are much more used to making trade-offs in life because there's nobody to coddle us.
Right.
There's nobody to coddle us, man. So we're much more used to making trade-offs. There's the old adage, you can't make a hoe into a housewife. Men understand that. And the reason why Rob Kardashian is, you know, the name goes in infamy because he's the one guy who thought he could buck that particular rule. And look at what happened to him. You can't make a garden tool into a housewife. Men understand that. If you get a garden tool type sister, you got to deal with the fact that you can't ever make her a housewife. That's all she's good for, is to do, you know, have fun and be a garden tool, and that's cool. But you can't expect her to switch up and be, you know, a June Cleaver, man. It don't work like that, and vice versa. With women, in this case, black, they never have to deal with trade-offs because you got the big daddy government, the welfare state, you got a whole bunch of simps and panda bears and all the rest of it. I mean, you always have various bailouts and buyouts and you know, Saved by the Bell and all that. There's always something for them. So they never have to deal with the reality and the consequences of their choices. Everybody else has to deal with it. They don't. And so it gets really difficult trying to make headway with these people because in a very real sense, we're coming from different worlds. In man world, there are consequences for what you do. In women's world, there's no consequences. Black women want it both ways. They want the benefits of man world without the consequences, and they can switch back to woman world when it suits them. And my position is, nah, it don't work like that. You want it man world, you got it. In man world, you get shouted down. You go in the public square, say some dumb stuff, you get shouted down, you get mocked, you get ridiculed. It gets very loud, very raucous. That's how it works. In man world, when you say something in the public square, you got to take on all comers. You don't pick and choose and cherry pick it. I'm unbothered. I said what I said. No, you got to deal with that. That's how it works. You know, men don't look upon other men kindly who shy away from direct competition and conflict. Look at Derek Jackson. He shies away from direct competition with other men, most notably and most lately, Kevin Samuels. And so men don't look kindly on that. So my thing is for the ladies who, you know, supposed to be about it with their A-type personalities and they want to be outspoken and all that. Look, you wanted to be in man world, you are. Now you got to go come and get this smoke.
You know, the development of society has sort of facilitated it's made it possible. It's made it possible for women to sort of have their cake and eat it too, right? Because before you had all this technology, I mean, if there are a few women that exist that you could put out in the middle of the wilderness and that they could survive.
That's right. That's right. Matter of fact, even there's shows here on YouTube. I think Bear Grylls Naked in the Woods or something like that. And but there was another really good one. And of course they did a Survivor, Battle of the Sexes or whatever. But there was a really good one. I think I want to say it's Sweden, I think. It's not American. I think it's out of Sweden. Anyway, one of the Nordic countries. And they did their own version of Survivor. So they took the men, took the women. The women were pretty much jacked up. The men, they automatically, squatted up into, okay, you do this, you do the other, I'll do this here. They all, got together and they was, nice and warm and toasty, and they got themselves a crocodile, killed that, made them, got some food from it. And meanwhile, the ladies shivering cold. And so they went over to the guys, and you know what goes on there. I mean, we're doing just fine with our stone tools and whatnot. And here you come wanting to get what we got over in this camp. And my question is, what do you have to offer?
Yeah. You know what's so stunning to me is, I mean, you paid some homage to Kevin Samuels when you said the pander bear.
Yeah. I mean, don't you agree with me though? I mean, if you're going to be in a public square in a way that Jackson was, and you're going to say provocative statements the way he has,
yeah,
and then you're going to make very provocative remarks with regard to Samuels, and you don't face Samuels mano a mano in the public square, you're looking kindly on that, Dr. Thunder?
No, that's against the code.
Yeah.
That's
and that code will apply to women if they want to do that. I'm not saying that women shouldn't be in a workaday world and do whatever they want to do, but they have to apply by the same rule. They got to adhere to the same rules of man world the way all of us men do. You want to work in a manly field, whatever, law, medicine, whatever, fine, but you have to play by the same rules, and the same thing applies here. You want to be in the public square, be an influencer, be a thought leader, you want to debate and all the rest of it, but you can't pick and choose it, man. You got to get to work just the same way the guys get to work.
Yeah, I think Jessica X said, she was talking about, I think it was an interview with Ike Ogiamian.
Right. Big Ike.
And she was, yeah. And he was asking her a question about, the workplace, and
right.
And her response was something like, you don't have to be masculine on the job because you're a woman.
Right.
You can be feminine. And right. Though some women don't like it when you're feminine on the job because it's, maybe it's like it's unfair or something.
Right.
But, there's nothing wrong with being who you are, to do the job. So you don't have to become masculine by working with men.
Right.
You can be who you are and, rely on your feminine nature, just like a guy would rely on his masculine nature,
right,
to do a job. And so that's it's a little bit of a. I still think only a small percentage of women are actually capable of doing that. Either have the awareness to even think about it that way, or just have the awareness to, in those situations, not just basically develop very masculine tendencies.
Yeah, I agree. We're in a very interesting period now with the whole gender bender deal. And I mean, personally, I don't have an axe to grind against those that, They feel they was in the, born at the wrong place in the wrong time. Hey, you do what you do. As long as you're an adult, you want to do that, that's your business. I got no problem with gay and lesbian people. You get down the way you get down. If you're bi, you go both ways. Hey, do you? But I do think, because all those groups are very small in comparison to the American population at large. In this case, even the Black American population, they're still they're barely statistically significant, barely. My concern is with the larger breakdown of gender roles and stuff in the wider, broader Black American society that came with the welfare state and the breakdown of the Black family.
Oh yeah,
I think that's the bigger concern I have, more so than being concerned with, rainbow people and so forth and so on. And I think it's had a very, deleterious effect on Black American day-to-day social life, and particularly with regard to relations between the sexes. And that's just not in terms of intimate romantic situations, but just day-to-day getting along. I don't know if you ever heard me say this, but, I tell a lot of people, and they kind of are taken aback when I say this, the single biggest problem that Black America has ain't racism today. That was in the previous century. W.E.B. Du Bois was right to point out that the problem of the 20th century for the Negro was the color line. He was right about that. But in the 21st century, it's the sober realization that Black male and Black female don't get along. We just fundamentally disagree. I mean, I don't know if you see it, Dr. Thunder. I know I do. We just fundamentally disagree on everything.
Yeah.
It's so little that we can agree on. Now, how are you supposed to make a family out of that? How are you supposed to make a society, a community, a society, a nation out of that? When Black men and Black women are that bitterly divided on almost everything.
Yeah. Well, one thing that one thing that I think Black folks need to realize is that white liberalism does not serve us. That ain't for us.
Well, that was designed for us. I mean, that was an issue, and Sister Shahrazad Ali was right about that, to point that out. This is an issue between the white man and the white woman. That was never our issue, man. That was their concerns, and however they choose to resolve it, if they like it, I love it. But that wasn't our issue. We had other concerns, but there were Black women who felt that there were leaders and voices in the civil rights movement that treated them unfairly, and as a result, they wanted to express themselves in the way that white women could, and look at the result. I'm not denying that there were guys in the civil rights. For example, the Black Panther Party treated Black women horrendously. I mean, one of its very first Black female leaders in the Black Panther Party, Elaine Brown, talks about this in her biography, A Taste of Power. So, I mean, you get no argument, for the sisters that want to argue that there were guys in the civil rights movement that treated Black women badly. I won't disagree with it. My position is, why'd you get with those guys? We all know, don't we? We all know the reason why those sisters were just drawn to those guys, don't we? No.
Well, okay, so I'm going to try to keep this straight because I have about 3 or 4 points. One point is that because you were talking about, you mentioned slavery, and that's like a thing that people bring up. Oh, we're oppressed because of slavery, and okay, yeah, I get that. And slavery definitely was the thing that got the ball rolling.
Right.
So obviously, I'm not going to dispute that. However, before the civil rights movement, Black marriage was what, 81%?
That's right. It's very high.
Right. Very high, higher than any other group, matter of fact.
That's right.
And so we went from that to where we are now with the, with the birth rate out of wedlock birth rate where it is now, with the marriage where it is, the fact that only 25% of black women will get married, all of that stuff happened post civil rights movement, but in particular post forced integration.
Right.
And prior to the forced integration, so one of the issues I talked to O'Shea Duke Jackson about this.
Right.
One of the issues with the forced integration is that they didn't take white folks and say, okay, you got to move in with where black people are. No, they just took the black people and and made them move out where white folks were.
Right.
And so we went from being very loyal to black-owned businesses, very loyal and depending on that, to now having a fundamental distrust of black products and services.
Well, I think that again, what happened, in my opinion, was we really don't appreciate exactly what the welfare state did to really kind of, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic here, but to really kind of destroy Black America. Now, I guess that's the reason why I'm, politically a conservative, because I've seen what up close and personal, living in Philadelphia all my life. I've lived other places, but for the most part, Philly. And, and as a matter of fact, talking about those other places, I've lived in other places in Black America and seen the same thing. So it's not even just something that's unique to Philadelphia. All of the massive intervention, between Black people. I'm a big believer in, keeping the government out of our interactions as much as possible. When we do have to intervene, it should be real quick and as minimal as possible, and then we get back to business as usual. But I think that Black men and Black women need to work out their own arrangements, whatever those arrangements might be. Black men need to work them out. Black men and Black women, rather, need to work them out. Same thing with business practices. Unless there's just like flat out fraud, malfeasance, stuff like that, we should be left to pretty much work out our own deals. The market has an interesting way of sorting things out,
Yeah.
So, I'm not a big fan of massive government intervention. My thing is try to keep it minimal. Do just enough to get the job done and get the hell out, and let people go back to resolving their own issues and what have you. Again, as long as nobody getting killed and major fraud and abuse, that sort of thing. But failing that, let folks sort it out amongst themselves. Let men and women sort out their own, whatever their arrangements are. I'm not here to police how people should run things in their own home. However they roll with it, that's how they should do it. And I think that we should largely stay out of it.
Yeah, so we have this two-party system, and our two-party system has been an abject failure to the black community. I think we need a black party.
Well, I don't think that will work, and the reason why is because our society is not parliamentary. We have a dual party system for a reason. It's not designed by design not to be a two-party system. Now, what you can do is you can take a page out of the Tea Party's book, the more recent, not the Boston Tea Party, but the more recent one, in more recent years. What they did was they were able to form a party within a party, the Republican Party, and make their stamp on it. Now, you can do that. I'm down for that. So you say, okay, which one we going to be, Democrat or Republican? And then we work within there to kind of form our own sub-party to kind of move the direction of the general party. You could do something like that. But as far as forming just an outright, group that's going to be completely independent, I don't think it's going to work. Even with President Trump, and for the record, I voted for him twice. there's talk of him starting a Patriot Party movement. Unless it's part of the Republican Party, I don't really see it going anywhere, because that's just not the way our society is set up.
Yeah, so I realize, so one sort of version of what it is I'm saying that in my conversations with folks, that they'll mention, say, hey, but they're already kind of doing the Black Party thing in the Democratic Party. They've got the Black Caucus,
right?
Or whatever, and that's kind of like what you're saying about the Tea Party and the Republican Party. The problem is that stuff hasn't fundamentally made a change. It hasn't made a difference,
right,
in who actually has the power,
right,
and who's getting served,
right.
Neither party seems to be particularly interested in particular, in what black men need. Black men. I think black women somewhat have been served by the Democratic Party. They definitely have been catered to and pandered to.
Right.
But black men have not. And, so...
Well, that's because black men don't make a stink. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about black men, just strong and stoic. I mean, that's not how America works, man. The only group of men that believe in rugged individualism and the idea of being strong and stoic inside are black men. You look at other groups of men, they make some damn noise. Teamsters, anybody?
Yep.
Tammany Hall. You look at that movie about Martin Scorsese, Gangs of New York. Those weren't, sober and judicious, quiet Quakers.
Nope.
Those are some loud and raucous Irishmen, man. And they ran New York. So this idea that black men need to be strong and silent and stoic and we can do it on our own bootstrap, man, bunk that. Bunk that.
Yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
You got that right. Yeah.
It's funny because I'm and that's actually been an issue that I've had in many of the relationships that I've had with women, is that I wouldn't speak up. I wouldn't say, here are the issues that I have. I just kind of would just swallow it. I'd say, hey, well, this is part of, hey, I'm tough, I can take it.
That's
this
right.
Is part of, this is part of being a man.
See what that gets you.
Right, and it didn't work well.
No, it won't.
It wasn't until my mid-30s that I even developed the ability to walk away from a female. That's facts.
Yeah. You got to do that sometimes.
Right, I'm in my second marriage, and the first one was, it met the, with the 80% of divorces initiated by women. It met that.
That's right.
It met that statistic. Not surprising. And
but but what is true though, but what is also true is that women also are quick to divorce other women. It's not just men.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that women will divorce just men, but that's not true. That women will divorce other women too. And so it's just, what it comes down to is that women are just quick to break up with anybody, Bigfoot, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s until I developed that ability, and it did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Not having that, because so one of the issues, and I think a lot of guys are like this. We're kind of talking about the same issue, not speaking up politically, not voicing a grievance in relationships, not you know, stating this is what it is that I want specifically. Women have their list, right?
And you can't be mad at them for that. I ain't mad at black women one little bit for voting damn near 100% for the Democrat Party. They should, because that represents their interest. Black women, but when you really get down to it, you know, we can go through all the rhetoric, but at the end of the day, black women have fundamentally different ideas about what a good life is all about. How what a family looks like, how a family is run, who leads, who calls the shots. I mean, now, obviously, I find all of it abhorrent, but they do have a right to do that. The problem is black men are not making any demands of either side. I'm a Republican. Black men aren't making enough demands of the Republican Party.
Right.
Far too many black men have been cowed into silence by black women, to tell you the truth. And one reason why I'm such a problem for a lot of black women is I won't be cowed into silence. I won't be shamed, guilted, insulted. I won't be cowed into silence. They're not going to do it to me. I got a big-ass microphone with the patented echo box effect on it, and I will be heard.
Hey, did you see the Uncle Tom movie?
Uncle Tom, no.
The Uncle Tom. Okay. Or it's just called Uncle Tom. It's Larry Elder. It's his movie.
Oh, really?
It's a documentary film. Well done movie. My biggest, and it's recent.
Okay.
It's like a 2020. It's a 2020 film.
Right.
My main criticism of the movie is they do a little bit too much Trump worship in the movie.
Okay.
But other than that,
why do you think they do too much Trump? Why do you think it's too much Trump worship? I'm just curious.
Well, I'm not a fan of any sort of, like, you know, cult of personality. You know, I have some issues with some of Trump's rhetoric, some of the stuff that he says that's kind of like out the side of his neck. I think that the media has been basically unfair and just, you know, taking all kinds of stuff out of context and making stuff up consistently all the time. But then again, he's an easy target because he's always saying all kind of stuff, and he probably just shouldn't say most of the stuff that he said. You know.
Well, I like the idea that Trump was kind of giving them hell. I liked it.
I like that. I like that he was not willing to just let the media do whatever they wanted to. I like that. And I also like that, though he ran as a Republican, he wasn't really a Republican. I mean, if you look at many of the ideas that he had, they tended to be more practical, not particularly partisan kind of ideas. And
right.
And I thought that was positive. And I also thought that a lot of what it was that he supported was, frankly, a lot of it was pretty positive for black men.
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest problem right now that black men face, the single biggest problem, and this is true whether you're married, divorced, widowed, you're a bachelor, you're a confirmed bachelor, it doesn't matter what your personal, where you at personally on this. I'm looking at this from a larger group standpoint. The single biggest problem facing black men is the home. And who runs shit in your house? Do you run it or does she run it? See, my position is black women understand that they can't do it by themselves. They have to have other women to help and men, and they need to have the government apparatus to reinforce it. They have to have the private sector and so on, nonprofit and all that to reinforce and support them. Black men are the only group of, and another groups understand this too. Black men are the only group of men who believe we can do everything on our own individually. That's a bunch of bunk. We need support at the government, nonprofit, and business class level to support the authority of the black man in the home.
Yeah.
Now, and that's true whether you're personally married, not married, divorced, widowed, separated, gay, straight, whatever. I think that's one thing all black men can get behind. Because, that's the other thing is what unifying issue is going to really galvanize black men. See, black women have galvanizing issues. You want to know what those galvanizing issues are? Black men. Black women understand that they have a galvanizing issue, and it's black men. Black men need to understand that they have a galvanizing issue, and I refer to it as black female fuckery. Yeah, it's pretty simple. We all can agree on that. Now, some of us deal with it more than others, granted. But we all contend with it. We all know it when we see it. All of us. And if there's one issue we all should be able to agree on, is that we need to restore black male authority in the black home. Because that's the key to solving a lot of problems. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to solve everything. It's a panacea. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it will address, if not outright solve, it will at least address and ameliorate to a certain extent a lot of problems in the black community. I mean, crime, education, because a lot of people don't want to admit this. A major factor in education is involvement of parents.
Yeah.
See, a lot of black folk don't want to deal with that. A major factor in education is involvement of parents. Well, if you only got a whole bunch of baby mamas, how involved can they be? When you got a whole bunch of baby mamas that's up there at the parent-teacher deal, not wives going up there or the occasional dad, but baby mamas. When you got that, you just look at the school districts, and you're in Ohio. You look at the school districts that are predominantly headed by black baby mamas. Look at the test scores. Whatever metric you want to look at is horrible. So we're going to address the education piece by restoring black male authority in home. Crime, same deal. We know to deal with that. You talked about Larry Elder. He said something I love. More dads, less crime. The end. I'm not saying more dads, no crime. I said more dads, less crime.
Yep.
And black business. Whatever issue you want to deal with, restoring black male authority in the home will go a long way toward addressing it. I'm not saying it's going to solve every problem. I'm not saying that, but it will solve a lot. And that's one galvanizing BFF and restoring the black male authority in the home. That's something every black man can get behind, no matter where you are on the spectrum.
Yeah, that's you're two parents for a reason. The design is for two parents for a reason. My son, he's 7. We have him in a private Catholic school. He's in 1st grade.
Okay.
And we are on him if he's doing anything he's not supposed to be doing. The teacher writes us a note, and he has to I pick him up on Fridays. She picks him up Monday to Thursday, and I drop him off every morning.
Right.
And he's got to hear it from both of us. And then she is on him as soon as he gets home. He gets picked up around, 2:30 or something. They're
right.
home by 3:00. First thing they do is homework.
Right.
He's got to read. He's got to do. There's a bunch of stuff. He don't get to just do all kind of wild and crazy stuff. He has to do what he's supposed to do, and he has to do exercises every night before he goes to bed.
Right.
And that's something I got from
that'll ensure him to make sure he go to sleep, tire him out.
That's right. Out. And he's got a lot of energy. But just imagine if I wasn't around. How would it be possible with consistency and intensity for him to get that kind of attention just from her?
Right, exactly.
It's not possible.
And you just got finished saying all that extra energy. Now you know the old adage, the devil mind, the idle mind, the devil workshop. So this little guy's got all this energy, no supervision from father, and where did he end up doing? The streets. He for the streets. The streets will train him. The streets will educate him. The streets will indoctrinate him. You know how that ends. Yeah. He'll be lucky if he walks away in one piece.
Yeah, and now multiply that by how many millions?
Exactly. It's a question of scale here. So this is another reason why I said, in a political sense, the Republican Party, black men have made some headway. What we got to do now is two things. One, we got to raise our voices. Two, we got to put our money behind it. That's what we got to do next. We've shown that we're willing to come out, but we got to understand how the American political system works. You got to be able to raise some noise, and you got to be able to raise some money. That's how it works in America.
You know, one criticism they made in that Uncle Tom movie of the Republican Party is that now, and I'm adding some of my own thoughts to this, with the Democrats. Now, we know that Democrats going to show up in the black church, you know, the week of the election, and we know they're going to, you know, do certain things that, you know, to be seen, and the whole symbolic gesture stuff. We know they're going to do that stuff. The Republicans largely, and for the most part, have made the calculated decision, you know, based on statistics and how many votes they need and all of that. Right. And you only have a certain amount of time to collect these votes, to recruit these votes.
Right.
So, well, we know black folks ain't voting for us anyway. So what's the point in us going to black church and, you know, doing some of these other things? So one argument that I think is a good argument, and that if Republicans are going to be able to get a consistent critical mass of black votes, they're going to have to change that. They're going to have to, you know, show their face, and they're going to have to be willing to have conversations with folks, put themselves in places, even when people are trying to shout them down. Because that's something that I hear often from, you know, Republican politicians and pundits and stuff, is that, well, you know, why should the Republicans or conservatives want to go, you know, in an area that they're not wanted, you know, this kind of thing. Well, you kind of did that. You kind of did that to yourself by just basically vacating and saying, hey, you know, we have no shot at this.
Right.
So that is something that they're going to have to improve.
Well, again, I don't disagree with you, but I think that the black men, if we agree that we are unique and we're in a unique situation, then we can't rely strictly on conventional means to get things done. In other words, we can't just sit here and wait for the Republican Party to get their act together. We got to be preemptive. We got to make a preemptive strike. We got to hit them up. So listen, man, we want y'all to, and see, the great thing about it is it's already baked in the cake for the Republican Party. Everything I'm saying is right in line with the Republican Party. Family values, strong business class, minimal government intervention, free markets. It's already baked in the cake. All we got to do is just hit them up and say, listen, man, we want you to go do this, and this. And we got some money for you. And that's it.
Yeah, my nature is to be very distrustful of government.
Sure, you're supposed, that's the American way. You're supposed to be inherently distrustful of government. That's the reason why we want as little of it as possible. Yep. We don't want a top down, you're supposed to put the man in the home. We don't want that. What we want is to get rid of the welfare state, get rid of the restrictive red tape on businesses, and let things kind of sort themselves out. See, black women do a lot of capping these days because they got the government behind them. They got the world's biggest gun behind them, man. And so you can't really do anything with that. Get that out of the equation. Black women are getting in line real quick. But as long as they got Big Daddy government there with the biggest gun on planet Earth, they're going to be capping all day, capping all night. Get that out of the way, they'll fall in line.
Now, what do you think of this, the vaccine?
I think it's great. I think that may indeed be Trump's legacy. I don't know where things are going to go over the course of the next few years, but just assuming that things are standing pat where they are right now, I think that will be his enduring legacy. Is he did get the vaccine out there. He did make it happen.
Now, I know you're aware of this history. There's a sort of precarious history between the black community and the government with respect to vaccines and other mysterious shots.
Yeah.
And I am inherently distrustful. You know, I don't even get a flu shot. Now, my wife she didn't get a flu shot either. And I think that there is good reason to have to question, or at least to pause and be like, well, I'm not saying that it's poison per se. I'm not saying that, it's, that's some conspiracy. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I am saying that let me wait a while to see how many people, this affects adversely before I decide I want to, go get my vaccine shot.
Right. Exactly. I think that it's a great idea. I think that I like anything that comes down the pike. We have to, look at it and work with it and stuff like that. And kinks have to be ironed out and stuff like that. But the general idea, yeah. I'd rather have a vaccine than not have. I mean, what's the alternative? Have no vaccine at all? Now, for individuals that don't want to, partake, that's their choice. I don't believe in mandatory, you must do this or you go to jail. I don't believe in that. But I do think that we should have the option for those that wish to partake of it. And I think that that's a good thing that we have. It's not perfect. Few things in life is. But I think it's a good thing that we have it.
Now, so what are your thoughts about this? So, obviously all these government shutdowns and not uniformly done across the board, different states doing different things. And then just the length of the shutdowns and how that's affected the economy and how it's disproportionately affected certain people in the economy.
Right.
I'm sure you have some thoughts about that.
Absolutely. Again, our society is not designed for a kind of Chairman Mao, Chinese communist, Stalinist, Russia type top-down type of bureaucratic situation. Our society is not made that way. We got the federal system and the state system and the local system. That's how it works. And ideally, they work together, but that's not inherent. It's designed like that to keep from centralizing too much power. So we're going to have a kind of herding cats type of effect here. That's inherent. That's by design. So when people say, we're not moving fast, blah, 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 blah. Okay, do you want to live in China? They can get things done pretty quick. Remember how that started.
Now, for a virus that has been a bit more deadly than the common flu,
right?
It seems like a disproportionate response to shut down and damage the economy to the extent that it has been.
Right.
You agree with that assessment?
Well, yeah, because see, my thinking is this. Like I said, we can't expect our society to operate like a communist society. See, like, you know, in China, and, you know, I was watching the late, great Stanley Crouch, and he hit the nail on the head. He did a C-SPAN interview like a decade ago, probably longer than that. And he said, you know, a lot of people are frustrated because they don't understand how American democracy works. See, like, you know, in China, you know, Chairman Mao said, now we're going to do this. And the whole, you know, 1 billion people just go in that direction, man, because that's the way Chinese society works. That's not how it works here in America. You have to convince people. And that could take years.
Yep.
That's just the way our society works. So, I mean, you know, I know a lot of people kind of frustrated, lockdowns and so forth, but we're not communist China, man. We just don't, you know, we just don't have like a fearless leader saying, now we're going to do this. You know, doesn't work like that.
You're hip to the black male political agenda?
No.
This is it's on. You can go to Dr. T. Hassan Johnson's page,
Okay.
and basically it's sort of curated from ideas generated from members of the Brotherhood of the Onyx Report.
Right.
And it has some really good ideas.
Well, mention a couple of them for me.
Okay, let's see here. I'm scrolling down. I want to, let's see here. Let's see, targeted unemployment programs. Let's see here. That's the one that I wanted to mention. Targeted, let's see, Social Security, paternity. United Nations. Oh, hold up here. I don't want to butcher it, but I'll paraphrase since I'm having trouble laying my eyes on the specific thing. But you remember when Dave Chappelle, he made the remark about, if women can, if they can abort the baby, then he should be able to decide that he doesn't want to pay for it.
That's right.
So basically, I guess it's called, what is it? Monetary abortion or something?
Yeah, financial abortions, yeah.
Financial abortion, yes, that's the name of it, right? So that's on here. There's all kinds of stuff. Targeted homelessness programs, educational programs.
Right.
Let's see here, family court reform.
Yeah.
One of the things is about, having a 50-50 custody as the default.
Right.
With no child support attached as the default.
Right.
And then moving forward from there, if you could be in a scenario where maybe child support does make sense, but not as the sort of standard, the standard fare.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's a well put together document, has a lot of really great ideas, and I know that you're aware of the Ice Cube's contract with Black America.
Oh yeah. And
that whole fiasco, and Ice Cube is not a Trump supporter, never was.
Right.
But at least he was willing to have a conversation with them.
That's right.
And I guess that was enough to indict him.
Oh, absolutely. In the eyes of a lot of black women, he's something of a traitor. Yeah. And I know that's hard for a lot of black men to hear, but we are where we are.
It's totally ridiculous, because if you actually look at the contract with Black America, why would black women have an issue with that? Why would you have an issue? I saw the clip with I saw the whole episode with Fox Soul on Fox Soul, where
right,
you know, they were like, well, you know, where's the black women agenda?
That's right.
It's like, dude, why does it always have to turn into that? Why is it always that?
Yeah.
You always have to have your own stuff. It's like, look, can we just have some community stuff? We didn't, you know, he didn't say black male contract with, you know, he said the contract with Black America, and women are part of that, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. But they don't see it that way. They see themselves as a separate constituency, and I've accepted that. It's time black men did the same. I think one of the big problems here is that a lot of black men, is very hard for them to reconcile themselves to what we're talking about tonight. I think there are a lot of black men are really holding on to something that's increasingly disappearing.
Now, I did have one last topic I wanted to discuss with you.
Yeah.
So, you know, you worked with Roosh V.
That's right.
And so Roosh V now he's Orthodox Christian.
That's right.
And he's very devout. Matter of fact, I've seen some of his broadcasts, you know, after he kind of decided that that's what he was doing, where a dude is like holding a cross and stuff during his broadcast, which is kind of an interesting, like, most miraculous sort of occurrence, because you can go on Amazon right now and buy his Day Bang book. So it's interesting how.
What did you think of Day Bang?
Oh, I have the book.
Yeah.
Not because I intended to use the methods within.
No, of course, for scientific purposes, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Scientific research purposes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I do when I'm perusing. It's all just research.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you know, but it's amazing that someone that was, you know, sort of popularized PUA could go full circle that way. That's
Strange things have happened.
But I will say this: many of his fundamental gripes with the way that our society is, I think the Orthodox Church, they're sort of congruent with issues that I think that the Orthodox Church would point out. It's one of the last remaining sort of patriarchal religions. I'm Orthodox.
Right. And then, of course, there's Islam. So, yeah, you put the two together. Right. Yeah.
Of course, which, of course, is very much so that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there will be a whole lot in common, especially in practice, in cultural expectations, modesty, and women covering their head and all of that, with Eastern Orthodoxy and Islam.
Well, I mean, you know, that's a big issue for a lot of black women. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told how to dress. And my position is, hey, look, we can do this by the law of God and man, or we can do this by the law of the jungle. Now, see, the law of the jungle holds that you see the female out there in the bush, so to speak, and you feel the urge, you just roll up on her and hey, it is what it is. And, you know, sometimes it can get pretty rough because she can fight you off, fight back, whatever. Now, we can do it that way if they want to do it, or we can do it by the law of man, God and man. We can do it that way. The ladies, you can choose it. But see, once the ladies have chosen it and they open up the whirlwind there, they can't get mad now talking about they want to go back to the other way. Too late for that. Too late. You know, if you want to choose the way of the jungle, you can't be mad when the jungle bites your back.
a community that has not been particularly well served by the black church, obviously, is black men.
Right.
And black men are leaving the black church.
Absolutely.
But one thing that's interesting about that is many of the black men that would have been in church maybe a generation ago, they're the same black men that you find in the black manosphere. I mean, I would argue that there are more black Christians involved in the manosphere than are regular attenders at church.
Wow. Well, now I'll be curious about why you would say something like that.
Well, especially of a certain age. I think that especially that age, anywhere from, say, when you would leave to go away for college, all the way up to, say, mid-50s or something.
So you're talking about prime male years, prime years to getting a wife, prime years to getting a mate, prime years to having kids, getting married, and all that.
Well, it used to be that black men came back. They came back to church maybe after they started a family. But now, since family is getting pushed later and later, and then also because I think that the black church has done a poor job of addressing male issues. I mean, churches are catering to the people that are in the church. It tends to be a lot of single mothers.
That's frankly. Right. That's right. And that's a very difficult, very, the weight, the attitudes, that's a lot to take, man. If you're a guy, that's a lot to take, man. That's a lot to take. And then the church don't say anything about it. Gluttony is one of the 7 sins. And I don't hear the preacher saying nothing about gluttony. You got all these big, huge broads out here. And I don't understand why they don't say something about that, Dr. Thunder.
I do and I don't. Okay, so, I worked at a big mega church. I've worked at mega churches, medium-sized churches. I'm a minister of music at a missionary Baptist church.
Okay.
Okay, now it's a small church, so maybe 300 or 400 members total, you know, and I think if you had the church packed, you might be able to get 200 people in there.
Right.
But I've worked at churches that were 10,000 member churches.
Wow.
And, I worked at one church that had a 5,000 seat auditorium.
Wow.
Okay. And so I think this is just human nature. And it's one of the reasons why the mega church model is not the model that is spoken of in the Bible. They were not talking about mega churches.
Yeah.
What they were talking about in their thought about what the church was going to be. Because if you need a staff of pastors, because a senior pastor, there's no way that they can have any kind of interaction, with all of the members.
Right.
Then that tells you that the church is too big.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I'm looking out, I'm preaching, I'm looking out in the congregation, 5,000 seat auditorium, say 3,500 people are in there.
Right.
Now that's a lot of people.
Yep.
And that seems like that's doing pretty good, right?
Right.
But I think human nature is looking at the empty seats. Human nature is saying, oh, wait a minute here. But look at what can we do to get those seats filled?
Right.
Right? And certainly if your goal is to fill the auditorium, you're not going to start saying stuff to folks that are faithful attenders.
Right.
That, that's, kind of pointing the finger at them.
Yeah.
And if there's not a lot of men there anyway, it's an easy group to sort of assault.
Yep. I agree.
And in general, I think women, I don't want to say that they're like mean spirited or something.
Right.
Like they're like, yeah, go get them. I don't know. Maybe some of them are that way.
Right.
But I think that sort of talk makes them comfortable. So the whole kind of man up, you need to take responsibility in the home. You need to, all of that kind of talk,
right,
which, men can take because we have been conditioned to take that.
right.
We don't complain. We just take it on the chin. Those of us that are still there.
Right.
So, so I think that is a factor, and it's not it's not a popular, take on this, but I think that whole psychological thing that's happening, just seeing empty seats and wondering what can I do, in the likelihood of not doing something that's going to, reduce your numbers.
Yeah.
And so you start to water stuff down. So it's another, it's another reason why I think the whole mega church thing is not that ain't the biblical model.
Yeah.
If you have 200 members, you can be as fiery as you want to.
Wow.
You got 200 members, right?
Right.
And the mortgage isn't as big a bill. Electric doesn't cost as much.
Right.
All of your expenses are much more manageable.
Right.
But these huge facilities, it's a lot of pressure.
I imagine so. It'd be interesting to see how what. I obviously I'm not a Christian, so I can't speak from the inside out. But it will be interesting to see how things go over the next few years. The direction of the black church, these mega churches and so forth. Be interesting to see how things turn out in that regard. Be very interesting.
Well, one thing is, in my conversation with pastors, and I know a lot of pastors,
right?
Black pastors,
right?
They're not even aware of they don't even know what red pill is or black manosphere. It's not even in their lexicon.
Wow.
And I think that's a big problem, because there's a lot of folks that would probably be, members in their church if they knew something about it.
Right.
So anyhow, well, thank you so much for doing this interview.
Yeah, we got to do another one real soon, man. Because I got a book coming out real soon, man. The Book of Obsidian. I got to get you a copy of it. You like it?
Oh, definitely.
It's going to be dropping in about another few weeks.
Yeah, and is there anything else you want to plug?
Everybody knows where they can catch me over on my YouTube channel, the Obsidian Media Network 2 channel. That's where I host my my nightly show 3 days a week, and on Saturdays, sometimes on weekends, in the evenings. You can catch me over there. And you can also catch me on Facebook, Obsidian Radio Live, on Instagram at Obsidian Radio, and on Twitter at Obsidian Files, Files, all one word, at Obsidian Files. Thank you so much, Dr. Thunder. I appreciate it.
All right, man. You have a good one.
You too, man. Peace.
All right. See you.